So over the last couple of videos you'll hear me talking about the winter iron treatment. So today what I'm going to do is show you exactly what I do and how I do it. Now it started off originally just me experimenting in my own back garden, just looking at the iron, seeing what it did to the lawn, and that could be just darkening it off, making it look nice and healthy, or it could be really heavy doses that turned all the moss black and really became a moss killer. I'm going to show you exactly how I do it and what works for me. So I've got my bag of iron here. I've got, actually it's an old drinks bottle, but a nice level top. Now I'm just going to add water. So now the buckets have got water in, we've got to go old school with a whisk, because now this is proper old school greenkeeping, this is. And we're just going to mix the sulphate of iron into the water. So now the iron's mixed up, what I'll do is I'll decant it into one of these tubs. The one thing I must say is, when you're dealing with iron products, they can be very gritty, and that can make the sprayer or the knapsack sprayer block up quite easily. So one thing I do, which again is a real sort of old school greenkeeping trick, is to actually strain it. And for those of you who are a little bit kinky, don't get too excited, but I actually strain it through a pair of tights. So this one is pretty old now, so I'm going to go with a new one. It don't have to be new. So basically you're looking for your wife or your girlfriend or your mum maybe, who's got an old pair of tights. And all I'm going to do is strain it through the funnel, through the tights. And now you can already see, yeah, and that's the sort of stuff that's being left behind. Now that is going to block your nozzle, and when you're out in the field you don't really want that happening, so that's why it's always good to get a pair of tights out and strain it. And now all I need to do is just fill this up. So the first, I'm just going to wash through and see if I can just push any of this stuff through. What can go through is great. And I'm now going to just fill this up right to the top, which I know is 20 litres. One thing I don't want to do is to get the hose deep into here, just because what you can do is when you turn the tap off you get a little bit of drawback, and it's not so bad with iron, but if you were using a fungicide or insecticide, what you could end up doing potentially is drawing some of that chemical back in and getting it contaminated. 20 litres, so this tub here, this will do 600 square metres of lawn. Now there's one last thing to do now. With any iron products, any misfits will really stand out like a sore thumb. So whenever I'm using iron in a liquid form, I always use a dye. in the product, so I can see exactly where I've been and also any bits which I've missed. Now, this blue dye will go everywhere if it's spilled, so I always decant it into a Lucozade Sport bottle, because it's just got the little rubber bit inside. So actually, if you turn it upside down, or the cap comes off, nothing comes out, so unless you squeeze it, of course. So it's just a little bit extra protection should it come undone in the van or something like that. Whereas if the bottle, if I was to spill that, it would take me forever to clear it up. So all I do is just give it 2 good squirts. And that's generally enough to colour the iron, just so I can see exactly what I'm doing. So now I've got to the property, all I now need to do, now it's all mixed up, is just decant it into the sprayer and I'm good to go. I never really fill up more than 10 litres, otherwise by the end of the day, if you've had 20 litres on your back, you really know about it. Okay, so the lawn's now completely done. You can now see, hopefully, that the moss is now beginning to turn and just go a little bit darker, and in a couple hours time that's going to be pretty dark and it's going to start dying off. So what we've got here is some of the mossiest grass I could find. It's just kind of a dump area really, but I thought this would be a good experiment. And the experiment would be to put the iron down with no dye in it, so you can see exactly what it's doing and that there's no colouring interfering with the experiment, and then just leave it for an hour and then come back and see how quick it is to start attacking moss and colouring the lawn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it out now, just a little section, go off, do a couple of jobs, then come back, and then we'll be able to see exactly what the difference is and how effective that an iron treatment can be. So it's 12:20 now, and as you can see I've sprayed between the 4 cones, and I'll come back in an hour and we'll see what the difference is. It's just gone 2 o'clock now and I'm back to see how the iron has reacted. Remember, there's no filters involved in this and there's no dye involved in this either. Let's have a look. So this is what the grass or moss looks like, and that is the area now. So that moss is dying off really well, so instant impact. So what you've just seen is quite extreme conditions of really mossy lawn. The other day I sacrificed my own lawn and I sprayed it with iron, but I only sprayed half. Now, bearing in mind there isn't any moss on my lawn, not just because, you know, I treat it and I look after it, but also it's south facing, so it gets a lot of light, and the drainage is generally pretty good. But I sprayed half the lawn and you'll see the difference. So here you can see this half's not been sprayed, and as I move over here you can see that that half is a lot darker. It's kind of weird when the phone adjusts, but you can see how that's quite yellow, and that's a lot darker. So the reason for the extreme blackening is purely down to the moss. If actually you look between it, you can see grass leaves which aren't anywhere near as black, they're just nice and dark, and that's what you want from this. Now, sometimes when someone wants their lawn looking nice and lush and green, and that might be during the summer because they've got a function, and I've done it for weddings as well, I'll only use half the amount of iron, and what that will do is just darken the lawn off, but not burn it, scorch it, or actually send any of the moss really black, because it does actually look quite unsightly. I mean, it's okay because I'm going to scarify it out, or not on that area, but for clients' lawns what I will be doing is scarifying it out, so that will remove all that blackness and then feed and seed the lawns, so the recovery would be pretty quick, and it won't be like that for such a long time. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Now of course this is what I do, and this is what works for me quite well. I'm sure there's lots of other ways of doing this, and at the end of the day you've just got to do what works best for you. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.